From a controversial victory over Jared Gordon at UFC 282 to having his entire world crushed by MMA personalities, UFC lightweight sensation Paddy Pimblett has just revealed how he was deeply hurt by Joe Rogan's comments. It's not the fans or Instagram comments, it's about the pros. Jared Flash Gordon was without a doubt Paddy's toughest challenge yet. The fight went the distance as both gentlemen went all 3 rounds, giving it everything they had got. And while Gordon put on an exceptional performance inside the octagon, Pimblett's performance was quite average. His first 3 appearances inside the cage were brilliant, but if I'm being honest, there were a lot of holes in his game.
Flying in a big right hand, Paddy Pimblett, he's done it! Paddy Pimblett is the new Cage Warriors featherweight champion of the world!
He seriously needs to improve, and yeah, it was a controversial decision that could have gone either way. But at the end of the day, the majority of fight fans and a lot of MMA personalities thought it was a robbery in broad daylight. Paddy stayed quiet about it for quite some time, but after all, he's a human too, you know. He finally opened up about all the criticism, and when it comes to all the social media comments, the baddie couldn't care less. He's not concerned at all. But when big names like Nate Diaz and Joe Rogan criticize him, he revealed that it definitely hurt. And Rogan didn't just call it a controversial decision or something, he said it was a robbery, and that too in broad daylight. It does make sense, to be honest.
But on the other side of the octagon, you have one of the new superstars in the UFC and Paddy the Baddy Pimblett, 19-3, fighting out of Liverpool, England.
I mean, just think about it. I could say Paddy's a bad fighter, but the truth is, he could knock me out cold 10 times out of 10. But if Joe calls him unworthy of the win at whatever UFC event, it's probably going to sting a lot, mainly because he's someone who knows what he's talking about. But you know what's funny? Paddy still thinks he won. Before anything else, it's important to give the Liverpudlian some credit here. He initially thought everyone calling it controversial was insane, but after he watched the fight, even he agreed it was much closer than it seemed. Gordon registered a lot of damage, but in retrospect, the baddie said he did enough to win the first 2 rounds. Now, the 3rd round could have gone either way because Flash hit him with some really significant strikes, but Pimblett did manage to take him to the ground, so there's that. Plus, the momentum was on his side. He's literally the next big thing at the promotion. He has a massive fan following of millions, and if I'm talking about his personality, Paddy has everything necessary to become a superstar. So it's pretty obvious why the judges might have been a bit more lenient on the scorecards. And as bad as that sounds, you gotta do what you gotta do. It's a business, and the best show sells. Paddy going into his 5th fight undefeated is bound to do way more in revenue. But yeah, time for what I think. The Liverpudlian won, guys. Yep, call me controversial, biased, or whatever you'd like. I think he won the fight, plain and simple. And I don't think he barely won the fight. I agree with how he scored the fight too.
That men can't talk. Listen, if you're a man and you've got weight on your shoulders and you think the only way you can solve it's by killing yourself, please speak to someone.
He clearly had the first 2 rounds under the belt and was the aggressor till the end. After all, even Dana White said Jared should have done more in the last round. Rogan, Nate, and a lot of other pros might have called it a robbery. But on the bright side, UFC president Dana White and former MMA fighter Chuck Liddell think it was close, but in no way a robbery. And the boss in specific also agreed with Paddy's method of scoring. He thinks Jared was out of the fight entering the last round, since Paddy already had the first 2 to his name, and what he should have really done is try to get a knockout. He shouldn't have played so defensively, thinking he was leading the fight on the scorecard, because at the end of the day, that's exactly what cost him. I mean, imagine how that looks to the judges.
I'm here to take over, lad. I'm the new cash cow. I'm the new main man on the UFC roster. I best be in the game next week, lad. That's simple, know what I mean?
And sure, he might not be down on one of the judges' scorecards, but for the rest of them, watching him so passive while being down probably made the decision even easier. Anyway, back to what I was saying. Dana didn't hold back one bit. He ripped Jared apart in the post-fight press conference for being so out of it in that last round. Just think about it. If he had given it his all instead of thinking about how he was up on the scorecard, maybe he would have gotten the W that that night. But anyway, no use talking about all that right now. Let me jump right back to the baddie, because believe it or not, he actually wants a rematch to seal the deal for good. The problem with close fights like this is that it's always a blemish on your record. Even though Pimblett has the win, it's going to be a robbery or controversial in the eyes of some people, and that's exactly why he needs to fight again to seal the deal for good.
De corazón. Hey.
English, yeah?
Hey.
Speak English.
You want to talk to me like the man to man? You said something about me. I went to your country. I slapped your face.
Right after sharing what he felt about Rogan's comment, Paddy hinted at the idea of a rematch against Jared. It probably won't be anytime soon, since the Brit has to undergo an ankle surgery, but maybe by the end of 2023. Who knows? Oh, and let's not forget, Gordon needs to win against Bobby Green if he wants this rematch, but there's absolutely no way the UFC will schedule a rematch if he loses. Or look at it this way, what's the point of matching them up when one fighter is unbeaten in 4 consecutive fights, while the other is coming off a fresh loss? But either way, you heard it first from me. Even if this match doesn't happen in 2023, it will happen eventually. There's no way Paddy will let this become a blemish on his career, but if the rematch doesn't happen, then there's an important question that needs to be answered. What's next for Pimblett? Well, just like I told you, he has to get his ankle sorted before he fights again. But is he ready for a ranked opponent? Should the boss take a risk by matching him up against a big name? If you ask me, I think that would be a mistake at this point. His game still has a lot of holes, and I think this has been a really humbling experience for him. But if he can turn his weaknesses into strengths, fans are going to be seeing a new and improved Paddy the next time he fights. Also, it's not like Pimblett's delusional or something. Even he said it'll take him at least another 3 years to become a UFC champion. At least he has realistic expectations, right? I mean, his rise might be similar to McGregor's, but let's not forget how the Irishman was dominating. He wasn't getting close decisions on scorecards. He was knocking opponents out left and right. And before Paddy even classifies in the Champion League, he needs to prove his game. But what else does he need to do? Well, he needs to cut out all the invincible drama. Michael Bisping said this, and I totally agree with him. Whenever someone asks Paddy who he's going to fight next, he goes on this rant about how he's this and that, and how he has no need to call anyone out since he's the prize. He might have a massive fan following, allowing fighters to cash out, but he's not even close to being the prize. He needs to improve a lot, and besides that, the Liverpudlian seriously needs to work on his attitude. He should be talking with his hands inside the cage.
And go to his funeral next week. So please, let's get rid of this stigma and men start talking.
And I'm hoping fight fans get to see that the next time he fights. But yeah, that's what Paddy had to say about all the criticism and Rogan's comments following his fight against Gordon.